Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second hour of the Live with Renk show. Appreciate you tuning in. As I was talking about at the end of the last hour, I brought up something that Congressman Amash was referring to. He directed me to the page of the Mueller report where he was referencing, and I found that, and I gave you my thoughts about that, and then played that audio clip of Attorney General William Barr. And then I was told by my people here that Congressman Amash had called and requested to come back on because yesterday our interview did end abruptly, and not because of him or I. It had to do more with I was out of airtime. It was at the end of the show. So I want to welcome back to the Live with Renk show Congressman Amash, so we can, I guess, further our discussion on what occurred yesterday and how we abruptly ended. So welcome back to the show, Congressman Amash. I appreciate that you could come back on so quickly.
Hey, Renk, thanks for having me on again.
Now, how do you want to do this? Because we hadn't spoke about this. Do you want to finish your thought from what we discussed about yesterday? And then I would like to go back to what you pointed out in the Mueller report was one example of what you thought was clear obstruction.
Yeah, sure. So let me go over a couple things first. Yesterday we were in a little bit of a hurry, especially at the end there. So you had brought up Clinton being indicted, as you said, and I had pointed out that he was impeached, and I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Clinton wasn't indicted. He was impeached, which is a form of indictment, just like you might have now with President Trump. But he wasn't indicted through the ordinary prosecutorial system. He was impeached.
Well, I do.
So I just want to make sure that was clear, because you kept saying that if Clinton can be indicted, how come Trump can't? But Clinton was impeached.
Well, two things. It was. I saw some experts talking about this, but they're only as expert as they're truthful and correct. Who said that he was indicted under this? There was a different law at that point, wasn't there? Wasn't a special prosecutor,
right? That was an independent counsel,
right?
But regardless, he wasn't indicted because the president can't be indicted criminally while in office. So you had another situation where Starr presented a report, just like Mueller presented a report, and it is true that Starr was more direct. Starr laid out a bunch of instances and said that he thought this was impeachable conduct. Mueller did not go that far. Mueller laid out the instances and said, I don't want to say whether they're impeachable or not, or indictable or not, but I'm laying out the facts for you.
Okay.
So there was a difference in approach, but in both cases, nobody's been indicted.
Well, now to that point, then let me ease into this, because yesterday when I gave you, you gave me an example, and then you pointed me to a page, and then I went and looked at it after the show, and the page you pointed to was Volume 2, page 115, 115. Mm-hmm. And in it, it says this: the next day on February 5th, 2018, the president complained about the Times, that's the New York Times, article to Porter. The president told Porter that the article was BS and he had not sought to terminate the special counsel. The president said that McGahn leaked to the media to make himself look good. The president then directed Porter to tell McGahn to create a record to make clear that the president never directed McGahn to fire the special counsel. Okay, that's directly from the report. Now, the point I made is this. This is where bias could possibly come in, because I can see your point and I can see the other point. Either McGahn's telling the truth or Trump's telling the truth. Because if Trump's telling the truth, then there's no obstruction of justice in your eyes because of creating a record, I would assume. If McGahn's telling the truth, then there would be to create this record, and what they mean by creating the record is correct the record with the New York Times, because apparently it was McGahn who leaked it. Any thoughts about that?
Sure. When you read the Mueller report from front to back, you go through all the evidence, and you look at the corroborating evidence, and this is a case where McGahn is a lot more believable than the president. And when you go through multiple instances in the Mueller report of alleged bad behavior by the president, and you see the evidence of that, and you have to ask yourself, who's being honest here? Is it the president or is it some of these other people? I think it weighs in many instances in favor of the other people. So, of course, if somebody thinks that the president is always honest, which I don't know how anyone can believe that, and all the other people are always lying, then, yeah, you could say there's nothing here.
Or the reverse is true. I mean, did anybody think that a lawyer is always honest? He's got to be pretty, something's not right about them, that they think a lawyer is always honest. I mean, it is a profession in which you're paid to, in not all cases, be honest, if you understand what I mean.
Well, there are consequences for a lot of these people when they testify under oath, and if they make some kind of false statement, there are a lot of consequences for them.
Except those consequences never occur. That's the biggest problem that all of us have.
Then you have the president who did not testify. He offered, his answers to the questions, and then the vast majority were I don't recall. Most of the answers were I don't recall. So, you've got people who sat under oath, were asked by prosecutors, and gave answers, and you've got a president who didn't do that, and then gave answers that say I don't recall repeatedly. So,
okay, all right.
I mean, you have to weigh it all. So
I understand. I just wanted to
read the whole Mueller report from front to back, and I weigh the entire case.
All right, I just wanted to bring that up, and then this is the last piece that I want to bring up regarding to what you said about why Mueller did not indict. Here's Attorney General William Barr giving sworn testimony in front of, I can't remember, it was the House or the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Special Counsel Mueller stated 3 times to us in that meeting in response to our questioning that he emphatically was not saying that but for the OLC opinion, he would have found obstruction. He said that in the future, the facts of a case against the president might be such that a special counsel would recommend abandoning the OLC opinion, but this is not such a case. We did not understand exactly why the special counsel was not reaching a decision. And when we pressed him on it, he said that his team was still formulating the explanation.
So there he is in sworn testimony saying, no, Mueller told us that's not why he's not indicting.
Well, that's not true. If you read the Mueller report, you can see what Mueller said. And Bill Barr knows that. So Bill Barr knows that Mueller was acting on the basis of the OLC opinion and constitutional law, and that he doesn't support indicting a sitting president. That's the tradition in our system.
So so Barr is not telling the truth in that testimony, and we should believe Mueller.
No, I think Barr plays a lot of games. In other words, he doesn't explicitly lie in a lot of instances, but he leaves out information, like he did in the March 24 letter.
You mean like a politician? Maybe not yourself, Congressman Amash.
That's exactly right. He is like a lot of politicians. I agree with you. He writes the March 24 letter. This is after he's received the Mueller report. He knows what's in it. So he writes the March 24 letter saying that these are the principal conclusions of Robert Mueller, and he leaves out the fact entirely that the main reason Mueller did not claim that there was chargeable evidence was because of the OLC opinion and because of the Constitution. So he leaves all of that out. That kind of omission to me is exceedingly dishonest.
Well, maybe he left that out, Congressman Amash, because Mueller told him that's not why I'm doing it. If I would sit there to say that Congressman Amash...
Renk, this is after he had the report.
Okay.
He had the report. The report lays out. The report lays out why Mueller did what he did. And then Barr actually writes a letter and says, I don't know why he did it.
All right.
He leaves it out completely, which is totally dishonest. It's totally dishonest. And Mueller himself then writes to Barr and says, hey, your letter was misleading.
Hold on, Congressman Amash. I've got to go to a quick break. We'll bring you back in the next segment. You listen to Live with Renk. Appreciate that very, very much. Yesterday, I had an interview with Congressman Amash. We had to end it quickly because the show ended. He called back today and asked if he can come back on to finish some of the points he was making. He is currently waiting on floor votes, so it all depends how much time we can have with him during these floor votes. And I was glad he called back because I looked into something he brought up yesterday and realize that what we have here, my friends, is both sides can be true. You either need to believe a politician or a lawyer. Think about that. That's a tough spot for all of us to be in, believing a politician or a lawyer. And I'm not saying that every single politician lies, but there's omissions, there's lies. And certainly we know what happens with lawyers. So I could see people taking both sides of this correctly. It all depends, as George Thorogood said, is who do you love? And I just, it's a tune. It doesn't mean you love the person. Let's go back to the phone lines. And Congressman Amash, thanks a lot for calling in, Congressman. We did get through the pieces that I wanted to concerning what you were saying. You brought something up at the end of the show yesterday, and not quite now I forgot what that was. And we spoke after the show off air a little bit in depth about that. What was it that we were talking about? Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly what we were discussing.
Because you're like, oh, I didn't want that to end abruptly. And I said, oh, well, email me.
Yeah, I think one of the things we ended the show with was you'd asked about, impeaching others. If this
Yes.
stuff is bad, why do we impeach in this case and not in others? And I was talking to you about how when you look back at Barack Obama or Donald Trump, even prior to the Mueller report coming out, there are all sorts of things that one could find that could be considered impeachable conduct. So I'll give you examples like unauthorized wars, where Congress doesn't authorize the war or some kind of military strike that's offensive on another country. To me, that's unconstitutional and that's impeachable. How about unconstitutional surveillance would be another example. The NSA or FBI using unconstitutional surveillance on people. To me, that's impeachable conduct. And how about emergencies, using emergencies? Emergency authority where there's not an actual emergency. That's impeachable conduct, in my opinion, because you're circumventing the whole system. You're saying, I'm going to ignore the separation of powers and I'm just going to do what I want. Now, the fact is, when you look at prior presidents, when you look at Obama, when you look at Trump, they've all committed these offenses. So these offenses that I just listed, war, surveillance, emergencies, Obama did them, Trump did them. But for neither one did I say publicly, hey, let's move forward with impeachment. That's partly because impeachment is, as I said yesterday, a quasi-legal, quasi-political process. And if I told people, hey, let's impeach someone for an unauthorized airstrike on some other country, probably only 5% of the population would be with me. 5%, maybe 10%. Same with unconstitutional surveillance. That's just unfortunately the way it is. A lot of people don't think that is worthy of impeachment, even though I think it is. It's unconstitutional. And when Obama was in office, I would say that. I'd get asked at town halls, and I'd say that's impeachable conduct. But the difference in this case is that people don't think that being explicitly dishonest in the way that the Mueller report lays out President Trump's actions were, they don't think that's okay. People do get behind that being impeachable conduct, and I think that matters. I think people are, when it comes to character stuff like that, like would you ask someone to make a false record? Would you dangle the pardon power out there to try to influence testimony?
Yeah, no, I understand. I think
that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff where the public says, okay, now you are pushing it. Now you've gone too far.
And I understand. Hold on, Congressman Amash. I understand that. And there are many things that could be impeachable according to the Constitution. Well, actually, it doesn't even have to be. They could not like the pencil they use or the pen they use or the signature, and they can impeach them because it's a political process. The issue, though, is uh, in the manner in which the investigation happened. Let me ask you this: someone's emailed me a question, a
Yeah.
constituent of yours. Do you believe the investigation was warranted?
Yes. In terms of the Russia investigation, yes.
No, not the Russia is something different than this other thing that
No,
we're talking about.
It's it's it started as one investigation. The idea was to investigate Russia's interference in the presidential election, and as a corollary to that, of course, they look at things like, did someone try to obstruct the investigation? That's just how prosecutors operate. You're going to see, did someone try to stop this investigation? But I think people try to divide this up into like multiple investigations. It is the Russia investigation. It's an investigation of Russia's interference in our election. And as part of that, you have a president who decided that he could obstruct justice for any number of reasons. He decided, this is what I'm going to do.
All right, to that point, though, Congressman Amash, to that point, then here's what my thought is. The fact that it was the Russian investigation and they never looked at the Hillary campaign, they never looked at the DNC's that we were told from a third private party was hacked by the Russians, just basically took out the legs from Mueller. And we're talking about Mueller, such a dishonest scumbag who left 4 people in jail, you know that, in Boston, I think you know about that, who were charged with murder by him when he knew they didn't get it, so Whitey Bulger didn't get in trouble. 2 guys died. It cost us $200 million because of the great Mueller. This guy has no morals or ethics to stand on when you're going to leave someone in jail on murder charges and you know he didn't do it. So all that mixed into it is where I think a lot of the frustration many people who are trying to be fair about this on the right are having.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't think that people are fair about it on the right or the left. I think people bring their own biases into this, and they read into it whatever they want. And if they want to think Mueller is a terrible guy, they're going to think that. And if they want to think Barr is a great guy, they're going to think that. So if you're looking at all these characters and you say, like, who's honest and who's dishonest and all that, I think Barr stands out there as one of the most dishonest people that I've seen in the political world.
But that would be people saying exactly what you just said, Congressman Amash. There's your bias. You're looking at Barr as bad and Mueller as good.
Listen, I'm looking at the evidence. So when you have Barr out there pushing repeatedly for the deep state, people always talk about the deep state. Nobody's pushed for that and been more of an architect than Bill Barr. He's been pushing for increased FISA powers to spy on the American people for years. Even now, he is running an operation to spy on the American people day in and day out without any warrant.
Under what?
And they could under FISA 702.
All right, which every attorney general before him was doing it since it was approved.
Yeah, and I've been against all those attorneys general too.
Right,
so,
right.
The point is,
hold on to that point if you can, because unfortunately I have another break I got to go to, and we'll see. He may be able to come back in the next segment or not, depending on his floor votes. You're listening to the Live with Renk show and Congressman Justin Amash. You listen to Live with Renk. Appreciate that very, very much. Online with us is Congressman Justin Amash. He called in to finish our discussion that started yesterday at the end of the show. I do appreciate that because there were some open things that we wanted to talk about that, and I was able to actually look up some of the things that Congressman Amash had said, and I had the audio clip of William Barr saying that's not what Mueller told us. Mueller told us that he does not bring an indictment because of the OLC opinion. He said maybe in the future things will be serious enough that he should, and you heard Congressman Amash's response to that. And what does it come down to? You believe Barr, and I guess what Barr said, it was in a meeting, so he should bring other people in that either support him or not, or you bring Mueller. Mueller, as I told many of you and reported before, left 4 guys standing in jail for murder, knew they were innocent, had the evidence that they were innocent, never let them out because there would have been a problem with then exposing Whitey Bulger, who was apparently a snitch for us in the mob. and 2 of them died. We had to pay $200 million to those families because of him. So which one do you believe? As Billy Joel just said, it's a matter of trust, and maybe you don't trust either of them. Thanks a lot for hanging on, Congressman Amash. I understand you may have to leave quickly if a vote comes up. I guess the question I have for you, because it does come down to a matter of trust. Now, you had stated prior and at the break that, read the report in its entirety, and you may change your mind, is what you're saying. I'm getting emails from people who are saying, hey, it was a baloney FISA warrant, not legal FISA warrant from the beginning. What is it? Fruit of the poison tree or something? Isn't that in law where
people talk about that, but they're misrepresenting it. The fact is, if there's a bad FISA warrant in one part of the investigation, that doesn't undermine the whole investigation or give the president authority to then obstruct the investigation. So it can undermine part of the investigation if there's evidence and it's proven, but not the entire Russia investigation. And the president, if you read the Mueller report, made an effort to undermine the entire investigation. So, going back to the point you'd made about Mueller and Barr and all that, look, I've got no love for any FBI director. I mean, I've been the leading opponent of the surveillance state in Congress. I've been fighting against FISA abuse, NSA and FBI abuse of our system. I was one of the people leading to end the Patriot Act. So I've been fighting this stuff for a long time, and I don't have a lot of love for FBI directors generally, or frankly even a lot of prosecutors. And if you look at the history of any prosecutor, you're going to find all sorts of bad stuff, whether it's a Mueller, I'm sure, or Kamala Harris, or anyone else who is a prosecutor. There's going to be things that you think are problematic. But when you read the Mueller report, when you read the whole report, and you read Barr's letter, and you listen to Barr's testimony, and you've got all of it, so you've read the report from front to back, and you've read everything else carefully, you've watched all the testimony, the thing that clearly strikes me is that Barr is the one who intentionally misled people. Whereas when I read the Mueller report, I don't get that sense from Mueller.
Now, if I may, Congressman Amash, to that point, because you keep bringing that up, Mueller himself came out and said, no, I have no problem with anything that was said in Barr's letter. I just wanted him to – no, he said, I just wanted him to include more like the executive summaries. I think he said of both volumes.
He did. First of all, he didn't say that. He said he was happy when he gave that press conference a few weeks ago. He said he was happy that the entire report was released, with the exception of some of the redactions. But the fact is, Barr clearly misleads people in his March 24 letter and in his testimony. He leaves out stuff that is very clearly a major part of the Mueller report, namely the OLC opinion and the constitutional concerns about indicting. It's very obvious to anyone who reads the Mueller report and reads Barr's letter. And then he acts like he didn't do anything wrong. And what makes someone like me really upset is that after Barr wrote his letter, I went on Twitter and I said that everyone should be happy about A.G. Barr's principal conclusions. I tweeted this out because I read his letter and I believed him. And then I read the Mueller report and realized he was misleading me. And he was misleading the American people, and that's not acceptable. And I was already skeptical of him before, and I said, okay, well, it's a good thing nothing was in the Mueller report, according to Barr, nothing problematic. And then, I was skeptical of him because of his love for the surveillance state. Barr's always been a big supporter of the surveillance state. But I gave him a second chance. I said, okay, maybe he did his job the right way. He says there's nothing here. He looked at it carefully. This letter seems okay. Then I read the report and realized he was misleading people, and that really made me mad.
Well, hold on, Congressman Amash, because this is what the letter says that you're referring to. So I'd like to know where it misled. I'm reading from the letter under page 3 under obstruction of justice. After making, quote, thorough factual investigation, end quote, into these matters, the special counsel considered whether to evaluate the conduct under department standards governing prosecution and declination decisions, but ultimately determined not to make a traditional prosecutorial judgment. Okay, so where is he? How is that misleading, I guess, is what I'm asking.
He left out one of the most critical parts of the Mueller report. He just left it out. It's like a lie by omission.
Which part?
So sorry?
Which part?
He left out the whole fact that Mueller did not move forward with an indictment. He did not say there was chargeable conduct because of the OLC opinion and because of the Constitution. That is not a minor omission. That is like the whole ball game.
But perhaps
that's the whole ball game.
But perhaps, Congressman Amash, perhaps he left it out because of this.
Special Counsel Mueller stated 3 times to us in that meeting in response to our questioning that he emphatically was not saying that but for the OLC opinion, he would have found obstruction. He said that in the future, the facts of a case against the president might be such that a special counsel would recommend abandoning the OLC opinion, but this is not such a case. We did not understand exactly why the special counsel was not reaching a decision. And when we pressed him on it, he said that his team was still formulating the explanation.
Now, to that point, Congressman Amash, you either got to believe Barr, you got to believe, but there's Barr, not even Mueller, because Mueller didn't come out and say, I didn't say that.
Barr had the Mueller report. He had the Mueller report. And also, what he's saying is technically not incorrect, but he's using a sleight of hand to mislead people.
Right.
He's saying, but for the OLC opinion, Mueller would not have found obstruction of justice. Okay? So, like, he's using a sleight of hand, double negative, to get people to think that Mueller wasn't considering the OLC opinion.
All right. Well, I got less.
The whole ball game is the OLC opinion in this Mueller report.
All right. We got 2 minutes. What do you want to make sure and hammer home that you want your constituents and fellow Michiganders and those outside of the state to know?
Well, I take my job seriously. I ran for office to uphold the Constitution and defend liberty, and that's what I do every day. And, you know, I think in this job, people are often looking for outcomes, especially people who are very politically active. They want their member of Congress to get them the outcome that they prefer. We like Republicans, so we want the Republicans to succeed. We want the Republicans to win in whatever case is in front of them. But that's not the way our Constitution works, and that's not the way the law works. I have to look at everything, look at the facts, make decisions based on the facts, and do the right thing according to the Constitution and the rule of law. And to me, that's the most important thing. And I will never sell out my principles. I didn't run for this office to make everyone happy just because they're on one side of the aisle. I ran for this office to defend the Constitution, as I told people. When I ran as a Tea Party Republican in 2010, that's what I told people I do. I was going to go here and go to Congress, limit government, uphold the rule of law, defend liberty, and that's what I'm doing every day.
Yeah, it was interesting. Now, after the show yesterday, you did say to me that if you were to lose in the primary of the general, you would want to go out at least acting on what you believe are your principles, correct?
Yeah, well, my point was, and I don't think I'll lose any elections coming up, but the one thing I said is I don't want to be here doing the wrong thing.
Okay.
I'm not interested in being in Congress and doing the wrong thing just because it makes particular people happy. My job is to follow the Constitution. That's what I swore an oath to do, and that's the best way to represent my constituents.
All right.
Follow the Constitution, uphold the rule of law, defend liberty.
Thanks a lot for calling back in, and we can hammer out a few more things, and good luck on those votes today.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care.
You too. I was Congressman Justin Amash.